I'd like to call the August 15th, 2018 Board of Selectmen's meeting to order at 6:30. Ms. Town Manager, do we have a need for non-public?
Yes, for legal.
All right. Short agenda, boys. Let's see if we can get out of here early. We'll see whether it's the women.
Let's go.
Okay. First thing, July 25th, Board of Selectmen's meeting minutes. Does anybody have any changes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have the August 1st minutes. And I'm sorry, guys, I have some changes on this. On page... All right, we'll go here. On page 4, the second paragraph above new business, the last line, and what I would like it to say, have more applicants that we could, not will, award that amount. I didn't say we would. On the page 5, second paragraph from the bottom, third sentence up, there's some discussion on whether that was the appropriate plan. I thought it would be the appropriate approach for the town to take. So change plan to approach. Is everybody okay with that? All right. On page 7, the second paragraph from the bottom last sentence, I'd like it to read, Chairman Murray stated that RSA 36A:5 requires that the Conservation Commission hold a public hearing, but did not have time to check all of the RSAs. Everybody okay with that? All right, on page 8, second paragraph from the top, second sentence of that second paragraph, and it says she suggested that, and I think we should put the word the Conservation Committee.
Correct.
So that we're clear on who should hold the public hearing. And that's all I have.
I have one change.
Sure. What page?
Page 11.
Sure.
Second paragraph up from the bottom. It should read, Mr. O'Brien agreed, projects that go for warrant articles on the capital side. So insert the word on.
Yep.
That's the only change I have.
Okay. I'll make them.
Chair, I got one also.
Oh, great. We're on a roll today. Okay.
On page 6,
Yeah.
to the fourth paragraph up from the bottom, the second line says, Mr. Harriman stated he wanted on record that his opinion for the best solution, instead of was, change was to for.
Okay.
Got it.
That's it.
Okay. Now I'll make the motion. I move that we accept the August 1st minutes as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All righty, we're moving on. We have a public hearing. I'll read the notice. The Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 15th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. at the Great Hall of the Wolfeboro Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, pursuant to RSA 31:95B. The Board of Selectmen proposed to accept the funding representing a gift to the Libby Museum from the Betty Jane Strauss, how would you pronounce that? Strauss Irrevocable Trust in the amount of $118,463.01. This was posted at the town library the town hall and on the town website on July 26th. Town manager, are you going to address this?
I can, sure. We received notification a while ago that the town was named in a trust for the person who had passed away, and we weren't really sure what the amount was. So there were several more correspondence where there was accounting done, and we are the very proud benefactor of that very large, handsome gift. And we would like to thank the family and friends of the person who passed away for thinking of the Libby, which is quite a little gem in Wolfeboro, and we will put the money to good and prudent use.
Are we going to put this in give it to the trustees of trust funds?
As it is a bequest, yes.
Okay. Does any other selectman have any questions or concerns about this? It's hard to have a concern of accepting money.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything? Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the funding representing a gift to the Libby Museum from the Betty Jane Schroth Revocable Trust in the amount of $118,463.01. The fund will be in the custody of the trustees of trust funds, and at the request of the donor may be used for its Libby general purposes, unrestricted.
Okay, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passed. Next item on the agenda, only thing we have under the bulk vote is the weekly manifest of April 8th. Can I have a motion to accept the manifest? The bulk vote?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. New business number 1, speed limit signs on Westwood Drive. This came to us, a letter requesting that we drop the speed down to 20 miles per hour. And I'm going to pass this over to Becky, and you can fill us in on the research you did.
So the lowest speed limit that a municipality can adopt without a special traffic study is 25 miles per hour. I went back to the requesting party and said, could we compromise at 25? And then I would ask the board whether they had ever entertained doing a comprehensive road study and whether they were interested in posting any roads less than 25 miles per hour.
And did you get a response?
They were content with the 25 mile per hour. They did say that they would prefer 20, but we know 20 is a school zone essentially, and that's quite a low speed. They did not want to burden the town with having to do a complete traffic study at this point.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any concerns or questions or comments? I think it makes sense to move it down to 25 miles an hour.
Yeah, I agree. I think 25 is very reasonable. Speed limit for a nice neighborhood like that where it's all residential. It's kind of a loop system in there, and I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. Anybody else? Can I have a motion?
I'll move that we post Westwood Drive at 25 miles an hour.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Next item is a discussion, the 390 line substation, and we have Paul Whalen here to talk about what he is concerned about.
Good evening. I was expecting a bigger crowd tonight, but this will work. My name is Paul Whalen, 79 Glendon Street. I want to thank you for having me on the agenda tonight. I'm here to boldly ask that the new power substation not be located at the end of Glendon Street and Glendon Street Extension. This request is based on the concern for my and my family's safety and our quality of life. but also, and most important, is the optics of a power substation being central to a revitalized, vibrant, recreational, visitor, and parking area. You love to have the charm of living where I do. I dare say that there are few addresses in town that see the diverse activity that I do. The road, the path, the bay, cars, boats, buses, trailers, campers, walkers, joggers, the young, the elderly, families, groups, individuals, dogs and ducks, and at all times of the day and night. So to somewhere explain where my head is right now, I'll briefly quote from a well-known singer-songwriter, and he tells his story in one of his songs. "The rock is going to fall on us. He woke with a start, and he ran to his mother, fear dark in his heart. And as he told her the vision he had seen, she said, 'Go back to sleep, son. You're having a bad dream.'" In this song, he talks about how one lone young boy warns the town in his efforts to be heard. Tonight, I stand in front of you feeling very much like that lone boy. By the way, you get a gold star for the evening if you can identify that singer. So I've provided you all with a brochure that outlines my talking points, and I've broken them out into 4 sections: comments, personal, community, and possible alternative solutions. I have also included some photos showing the comparison of Glendon Street Extension back in '08 and what it looks like this summer. And wow, what a difference. Does everyone have? We're good with the brochures? So, this is a bit confusing, and I do realize that I am coming to the table very, very late in the game. And I did speak against the substation at the Planning Board public hearing on the 390 line project, which is now underway. However, the conversation was really about that 390 line and not the power substation, and it was suggested that I return sometime in the future when that public hearing comes up. But here's the catch. The 390 line, already underway, will determine where the power substation is to be located. So this is really actually the time to be talking about the substation project in combination with the 390 line. Barry and I have spoken many times, and I know his plans to put the substation back in the old spot. I just didn't seem to realize how reality it was until the 390 line started, the project started. And I do want to recognize that Barry runs an impeccable department, providing the service and maintenance to the infrastructure. It must be challenging to make technical changes and upgrades that are visually appealing. Now, the town of Wolfeboro has an astonishing power-up rate of around 99%, although almost all widespread outages have been caused by service interruptions outside of Wolfeboro. And I'm sure Barry will correct me on those, but that's the research that I found. So many are surprised to hear that there are virtually no population growth predicted for Wolfeboro in the next coming years. And actually, there was a drop in population from 2010 to 2016. A master plan study conducted by UNH in 2016 suggests that there will be little new housing or industrial growth in the town. Therefore, an aging population with potentially less disposable income, less mobility to shop. In the survey, relatively few think it's important for the town to provide more land for commercial or light industry or increase residential density. So what does that mean for a town like Wolfeboro? Heavier economic reliance on tourism and visitors needing convenient, safe, and welcoming access to parking, activities, and the downtown area, and a heavier reliance on the Glendon Street area. A new substation will add distribution, not redundancy. That is, it will move the fingers of the power out further, with additional fingers should a section fail. Yes, other sections will continue to have power. Remember, though, almost all widespread power outages happen outside Wolfeboro. So I acknowledge that the new substation has been in the capital improvement program and that Barry has planned on putting the substation back on Glendon Street. That is technically makes sense, and he's certainly not wrong. But this is not in keeping with the safety of the citizens or the optics of the vision of the town wants to be. That there was a power substation on Glendon Street before is not a valid reason to put another one back there. Back in '08, and certainly before, it would have been hard to argue that that wasn't the place for a substation. But wow, have things changed down there. This no longer fits with how other departments in the town have improved Glendon Street area. The current power lines and substation structure have sat there for years, with countless people going by and asking me why the town doesn't clean this up. So the Economic Development Subcommittee and the Master Plan, in their draft report, suggest that the growth for the downtown Greater Loop include pedestrian infrastructure improvements along Mill Street and up through to Center Street, and connecting existing destinations such as the dockside area with economic development and recreational opportunities, and even commercial expansion onto Filter Bed Road. There is that common theme: pedestrian traffic and recreation in the downtown area. So a question: would it indicate possibly more power demand on the Bay Street side of Back Bay and better served with a substation on that side of the bay? Actually, when you think about it, the largest building on this side of the bay, the Bell Building, has recently been acquired by a transitional family housing organization that will have minimal power usage compared to other possibilities for that building. Then another question: is there really an immediate need to even add another substation, since it is predicted that we will use less power from the grid as homes and businesses become more net zero focused? And should we recognize any savings by not installing a new substation in bay lines across Back Bay, let's put that money into innovative solutions, such as power storage and other power sources. So my personal concerns. These are facts. The concerns are very, very real. The photos show you the lay of the land and how close everything is down there. Here they are. 1, electromagnetic radiation and electromagnetic field. According to research and publications out by World Health Organization, EMF, such as those from power lines, can cause serious health risks. In addition, hundreds of studies worldwide have shown that living next to high voltage power lines and other parts of the power infrastructure increase risk of cancer and health problems. It's not surprising that governmental and municipal organizations dispute these findings. Non-governments support them. Of course, the obvious comparison is how long it took the government to admit cigarette smoking was bad for you. Number 2, noise. How awful it will be with a constant hum being emitted from the equipment while trying to enjoy the backyard I've worked so hard to improve. 3, safety hazards. 4, property value. All sources indicate this will have a considerable adverse effect. And I clearly remember our realtor, after the house being on the market for over a year, I was one of the first people to look at it, since the substation had been removed down there. He explained others would come down the street, see the substation, and not even get out of their cars. Of course, I was told it had been removed for good. So over the past few years, the path has been getting busier, and the parking lot typically full on a good weekend. It has even had limited spaces during the week. Changes to the community center could possibly even enhance the area more and invite more activity and traffic to Glendon Street area. So how many of you have actually spent time down in the Glendon Street area? Really spent time watching from the eyes of visitors and people using the area. Dave, you were down boating the other day, and I invite any of you to come down and sit on my patio and watch the activity and the world go by. So according to the master plan survey, more than 90% of Wolfeboro residents think it is important for the town to preserve scenic views and open space, so provide a welcoming atmosphere in preserving the character that is Wolfeboro. Last weekend, a small girl walking with her mom stopped to read the sign on the enclosure fence. Danger, high voltage. Mommy, what is that thing? Her mom responded, I don't know, but let's get away from it. This type of comment happens often from the young and old and hardly promotes a welcoming atmosphere. So on to community. These focus on safety, optics, and you can argue about power lines and substation dangers all you want. However, importantly, the perception by most everyone is that these are extremely dangerous, even to be near. Since I've already touched on most of these, I'll just quickly run down the list. 1, optics of the Glendon Street recreational visitor and parking area. 2, it's just simply not the correct place for a power substation in keeping with other town initiatives, interest in promoting easy, safe, welcoming movement between parking lots and downtown businesses, economic development of promoting the downtown area. 3, is a substation truly needed? 4, continue to reduce the overhead wires so often spoken about. 5, there would be no wet area impact by not having overhead wires and poles. 6, Glendon Street was certainly an industrial area many years ago and not the vibrant community visitor recreational parking area it is now. So simply putting a new substation on Glendon Street is absolutely the path of least resistance, but it does not show a lot of concern for safety or quality of life, nor the optics and impact of how simply awful a power substation will be in the middle of such a vibrant area. This impact has widely slid under the radar. No tax burden and electric service improvements. Who wouldn't go for that? We often remember the freezing cold day that we lost power, not the more than 99% of the time we have it. And oh, remember, the failure was probably in Tuftonboro. Finally, the list of possible alternative solutions that I have thought about and ask why they couldn't be a solution to the Glendon Street location. Remember, other departments have won awards for their innovative ideas. So 1, upgrade the Filterbed Road current substation to carry a heavier load. 2, add another substation on Filterbed Road if you want more diversity. 3, add a substation on the wastewater treatment facility land. And 4, if it absolutely, positively has to be at the end of Glendon Street, put the substation inside the old power generation building, which has been sat empty for many years. However, the wires will still come across the bay. So my doorbell rang a couple of weeks ago. A very elderly gentleman and his son were standing there. They introduced themselves as the Sharks, and that they had lived in the house many years ago. They were in town visiting and wanted to say how nice the area had looked, and actually noted the missing substation equipment. I explained that the town was planning on putting it back. Mr. Shep, feebly shaking his finger, said, "Don't let them." So, 1, huge issues with my personal safety and quality of life. And 2, as I reflect on the improvements to Glendon, Laner Streets, the community facilities, Back Bay, and the path, I conclude this evening by quoting another well-known song. One of these things is not like the others. One of these things just doesn't belong. And with that, I say, this is simply no longer the right place for a power substation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any board member have any comments?
I
Okay.
probably have a few questions. I don't know if Barry be,
Up-
have him up to answer some, or until the point.
It's up to Barry.
If you, I'll put you on the spot, Barry, but.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I'm Barry Muccio, Director of Operations for the Electric Department. I wasn't quite sure if this was the forum to respond to such as not being a public hearing, but we will certainly, from my perspective, we will certainly review Mr. Whalen's comments. We would have a rebuttal in some cases to clarify some of the issues that he stated. And I think we would be able to clearly address many of those concerns.
And so we'll let him know when you're going to do that presentation.
Yeah, I mean,
to us.
there certainly will have to be some additional public hearings as the project goes along. So.
I guess one of the questions I had quickly were more of a technical type stuff on, not necessarily just this whole concept here, but on the electromagnetic radiation and electromagnetic field, are there regulations and guidelines that are set that you, and if so, is there monitoring that goes on to see?
So EMFs and EMRs are typically related to, as Paul said, high voltage. This is considered medium voltage. Okay. It's 34.5 kV. Those kind of concerns would crop up when you get up to the 115, the DC lines. This really isn't a line where you have EMFs or EMRs that really are any concern whatsoever. Although we call it our transmission line, it's really, in many places, they run that same voltage right down the street. That is their distribution voltage. So,
Dave?
Yeah, I get quite a few questions. Maybe they should be answered at a public hearing, but when was that substation decommissioned? Do you know about?
Oh, it was probably 07, 08 when we actually took most of the equipment out, but I think it was all out probably by 09 entirely.
Okay.
That is the original substation from 1961. So, yeah.
When? 51?
61.
61?
Yeah.
The generation plant building, I think it says 1904 on it or something like that.
1897 at one spot, but the
1897.
there's that I don't believe that was the building that was used in 1897. There's sort of 3 errors of additions that were put on there, and the last one.
And then that was decommissioned.
Yeah, that would have been around that same period. Well, a little bit afterwards, but as far as actually being in use, once the substation came out, that had to subside as well.
And when the generators were running, that was 24/7. I remember that.
It's original, yeah. That was. We were an island here in Wolfeboro up before '62. So that I would assume that substation site, was even there prior to '62 because it was used to tie into the distribution.
And the 390 line, when was that hooked?
61, 62. That was
61,
1961, 62. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Okay. And Paul, when did you buy your house? 08?
And the one thing I'd like to add is, we've certainly been up front with the idea that we were going to save that real estate there all along, even when we decommissioned it, and what our intended future use was, which was to recommission it as a substation. That was never, that was stated many times. I don't think I ever.
Now, all of your stuff comes into that substation area and then gets distributed out to the town?
Correct.
Let me just follow that.
Yeah.
If the substation is not installed there or right in that area, does that mean you'd have to redistribute or rewire from, say, if you put it over on the other side of the bay and bring it over here, you would still distribute from there?
Well, what would happen is what you see downtown here, you have one circuit.
Right.
It's that top circuit. If you recall, prior to 2003, we had 3 circuits running right down through downtown. If we put a substation across the bay, we'd have to add 2 more circuits to this distribution feeder right down through South Main, because I don't have another place to get where our load is, which is on South Main Street. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And the whole idea is to get a substation closer to where our load center is, at the hospital, the high school, Brewster
Well,
Academy.
that's why I'm asking that, because I think even when the power plant was there, the distribution came out of that power plant in 3 different circuits, if I remember.
Yeah, there's actually 5. A couple of them went north, 3 of them went south.
Right, and then we put that one circuit up to the high school back in the early 60s.
Yep.
63 or 2, somewhere in there, when that was built. So everything distributes out of that one area.
That would be the scenario, right?
Right now.
Well, right
But
now,
if it were changed, then you'd have to reroute.
we'd have to bring a couple more circuits down through town to get to the south.
And you would bring that at a public hearing when we have one? Can you
I will
draw
certainly,
that up?
I'll certainly address those type of concerns,
Okay.
Dave. I think there are many more things that would disallow that, and the idea of redundant circuits would be low on the list. But there are many other things from a technical perspective which would dissuade people pretty quickly to not go that route. We're really trying to diversify our load center. Paul had mentioned, well, we add another sub up at Filter Bed Road. We have 2 up there now. One of them needs to be decommissioned. But all our eggs are in one basket up there. We have a catastrophe by adding another substation up there. We could lose the whole town. If we had a storm hit, lightning strike, anything like that. So we're trying to diversify and get our power closer to our load.
No.
For now, yeah.
No. I have a couple of questions. The generator building. So that generator building, when there was a Jenny in there, was that feeding power to the substation to go out?
Vice versa.
Vice versa?
Yeah.
So how was the
Going
power
both.
getting from site A to site B? Underground, aerial?
It was underground.
Is the underground still there?
No.
What happened to it?
Well, it would have been direct buried stuff, Paul.
it's
That
like
wouldn't.
slip trench?
I say it's not
no
still there.
conduits.
It's probably there, but it's not reusable in any way, shape, or form.
Just trying to.
It also, remember, when it was going from the power plant to the substation, it was at 2,400 volts.
Okay.
That was long before we upgraded our voltage to the 12,000. So it was a whole different ball game back then.
Right. So I think, Paul, you did a great job, and very logical and very lucid presentation. I think the question that I come away with is, it's a question of challenging the engineering of this network. To me, that's what it sounds like. And I'm not suggesting that you're not qualified to challenge the engineering, but we have a person that says, I'm challenging the engineering design of the network. And I think that my colleague was asking you, Barry, if you didn't do it there, what else would you have to do? You'd have to run a couple of more circuits up here, and at some point during a public hearing, could I just recommend that you consider putting up a wiring diagram of this part of the town that you're trying, and you have these already, and why you selected that place versus someplace else. I'm not in the business of telling you how to engineer your network.
No.
But I think the public needs to, feel comfortable that you've done what you normally do, which is you thought a lot about this. You really, so that would be my first piece of,
that makes sense. And
just get a wiring diagram and kind of like big pictures where you can show people
And
what.
certainly that exercise has been gone through many times.
And who knows, you may come up with an aha moment. There may be hadn't thought of something. And the second thing I would think that you might want to address is, what's the problem you're trying to fix? What metrics are currently in place that you're looking at? What cost and what benefit you derive? And I'm sure that when you come to the CIP, you're going to have to discuss that anyway.
Yeah, certainly.
So I would say, and Paul, I can't address whether I agree or not agree with the EMF thing, and that. Those are regulations and standards, and we're going to follow those. in our town. But I do think that some more clarity for the people, why you selected it, how it's been engineered, what alternatives you considered, how much it, what it would do. And again, I'll put in a little plug too. That building that's been there, that's a generator building, I don't know whether that's suitable. I don't know whether that makes sense, but you may want to address that in a positive way. In a positive meaning, speak to it when you come forward to CIP or wherever.
Yeah, I'm certainly prepared to do such. Yeah. As,
And one of the reasons when Barry called me today, he hasn't had time really to put that together. Paul had asked me about the power plant, and I said, come tell the board. Let's hear where you are. So that's why Barry and I decided we wanted to hear from Paul, and we didn't want to get into that kind of discussion. One of the things I'd like to issue, Barry, right now we don't have any power. We have no substation. Right now we can handle it all from Filter Bed Row. Am I correct?
This substation would replace one of the ones up on Filter Bed Road, which would be decommissioned based on age.
Okay, so we have two up there.
We have two up there.
Which is now how we're getting power.
Correct.
And are we having any issue with our power now?
There are certain areas in town that are still on the 4 kV, the North Main Street, Forest Road, that are still having issues in the summer heat. Yeah.
Okay, so that and having one down here, you're going to address specific electrical problems, which is part of what I think, Paul, you're talking about, seeing the whole part of it.
Show us the picture.
Now, the other thing is, right now, the way things go, if we lose any one substation transformer, we're down.
We're down.
I don't have the redundancy to do some switching and carry the whole town. I can only do that for a short period in the spring and in the fall when the loads are down. The idea of this was to build in some redundancy as well. So we're upgrading something that's at the end of its lifespan, the number 2 substation, but we're also building in redundancy. So if I could speak to one thing about...
I get that, and I think that's a smart thing to do. You physically want to separate these centers, these substations from each other. God forbid you have a catastrophic event, one of them goes down.
Right.
Paul made a good point. Service coming in from on the 390 line is, a couple of 99 and a couple of 9s of availability. So it's smart to diversify, but I think the big question that remains at least unanswered for the public, and maybe for me too, is why there and what areas, that you would touch as a result of doing that go from, maybe yellow to green. It's like these areas get much better, reliably, right?
Certainly. I mean,
That would be-
we have that information.
There.
It's nothing. And if I could add to just one thing,
Sure,
the load
absolutely.
in town. I mean, I know you mentioned that the load is going to be going down. We saw our highest peak demand that we've ever seen in Wolfeboro in the month of July at over 17 megs peak. We're usually around 15 peak. So there's still a lot of building going on in this community, and there's a lot of load growth going on. Look around the building and the building division, you can see that.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
We've set a ton of new meters. So,
And just to move away from power, and I want to thank Paul for these pictures, just take a look at what we have done down there in terms of moving it from an overgrown area into a very vibrant, very nice looking recreational area. So that says a lot for us as a town and for the voters who were willing to put the money in to make that change. I mean, these pictures show you a lot. Paul, didn't we do a boundary line adjustment with you with a piece of land? We gave you land to kind of square off your lot closer to our substation? Okay.
Yep.
Right. Once we purchased that Green Mountain land, That's right, but when the town got that Green Mountain property, we made that adjustment for you, because at that point, we owned it instead of Green Mountain.
Put there in 61.
Okay, thank you.
I know you can't answer the question because you probably don't know. I'm not leading the witness here.
Sorry, shoot.
Is the physical capacity inside the Jenny building less than, greater than, equal to what you need for substation?
The generation buildings, I said.
Yeah, you know?
Putting a substation inside a building, it changes the whole ball game in regards to insulation value.
Heat and all that kind of stuff?
In other words, you're talking about having SF6 gas insulated. It's really something that it would probably double the budget of a substation. And I don't believe even the space that's there would pull it off. I threw it out there to our engineer, and he sort of, no offense, but he was just, that just can't happen in that site, in that building of that size.
Well, again,
For a sub.
I'm not going to judge your engineering. You just have to share why you did it.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's important that we sharpen all of our pencils here to the extent that we can. This is an important area, and there's a part of me that says I don't like the look of that stuff either. It is what it is. I mean, it's and to the extent that we can get ahead of this and have a conversation, I think we are better served.
And there's certainly some things that we can do with buffers and some screening of a facility such as that would soften that from an aesthetic standpoint. You can even do some walls, structural walls that are,
There's kind of a question I had was, especially on the noise end of it there, if there's some way to put screening in, especially up around, Paul's house, something like that. So
yeah, and the noise is pretty easy to deal with now, Brad. The newer transformers with the higher efficiency ratings actually are much quieter,
Yep.
just as a nature of their efficiency rating. Probably if you're comparing the substation noise up at our current substations, and if you're thinking that's what you're going to hear down there, I was told that typical new substation is not going to be any louder than a pad mount transformer that you have feeding
Your house?
any home in an underground development. So they've come a long way with the noise. And then if you add some screening and buffers, it even goes down.
So I imagine they would have some statistics on that, and that would be something nice to get in terms of noise. So you're going to want to deal with the issue of noise.
Just based on its location, regardless, if it was an issue or not, we would go with certainly the lower sounding units, without a doubt. So.
Anybody else have any comments? You got to come up to. He's going to have to step. We have to go through the mic system.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Dave, you had said something. I just want to make sure you understand. Right now, there is no substation there. It's just the enclosure and the wires. Okay. You had said something about it, so I just wanted to be sure you understand.
Oh, I knew the one. I just want to know exactly when it was removed.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is set dates for the selectmen's hearings on the budget. And I'll, do you want to do this or you want me to? Okay. I went out and I looked at, they gave us a list. We did do 6 meetings, but last year we did the nonprofits in September, which I think we're going to do the second meeting in September. But we also took one of our meetings and we used the end of it to do some of the budget hearing, trying to cut down the number of nights. I know we all like to be together during that time, but we were going to try to see if we could be there less often. So, let's see if I can find it. Here are possible dates. October 9th, October 10th would be at the end of a budget meeting, October 11th, October 15th, October 18th, October 24th at the end of a selectmen's meeting, and if needed, the 25th. So I don't know. It looks like, and I have to go back to my calendar now. There's only one week that we have two, and that's the 9th, 10th, and 11th. So as you look at your calendar, does that work for everybody, or is there dates that do not? If they do not work, we'll find others.
So, Madam Chairman, you're saying October 9, 10, 11 as 3 consecutive dates?
That's what I have here, yep. One of them is a selectmen's meeting. So that means we're going to be there Tuesday. We're going to have a regular selectmen's meeting, and then at the end of that meeting, we're going to do the budget, and then we're going to come in the next night on Thursday.
Do we have?
We can change them.
I didn't see a
10th is
meeting.
the second.
I didn't see a meeting
That
on
was
the
the
10th.
second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday, yeah.
All right,
Third would be the first meeting of the month.
Okay.
so October
Well,
9th,
I'm just looking at what I have here.
how about 9, 10, and 11, 6?
Okay, I'm just reading what what I was sent here. So those are the general ideas. Let's go look at the calendar. Let's look at the week of the 8th of October. What days would you like to meet?
Well, Monday, the 8th is a holiday.
That's right.
Columbus Day, yeah.
9, 10, and 11.
9, 10, 11.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, everybody okay?
Normally 6 o'clock, is that when you want
6
it?
o'clock, and then we can decide who's going to cook dinner. So does that work for everybody? Everybody have those days off?
Yeah, we can knock 3 nights right off that week.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the next week, as I recall, I was saying the 15th and the 18th? I have to go between documents
The
here.
17th, we do have a selectmen's meeting, right? Okay. So 15th, which is a
We'll be
Monday?
there the 15th. Do we want to try to, if we, we'll do it on the 17th, we'll do at the end of the meeting, we'll do some budget,
Some of the smaller ones.
smaller ones, okay?
Then also on the 18th?
Yep.
Yeah?
If that works for everybody.
So what are we talking about we're doing Monday the 15th?
Yep,
Monday the 15th?
15th.
17th.
Oh, wait, Brad, does Monday work for you? You have a problem with Monday. Maybe we should get off a Monday.
Can be, I should be able to get back here by 6 o'clock, no problem, most times if I'm, it'll be 15 minutes, that'd be about it.
Would you prefer us to do, why don't we do the 16th so you don't have to rush back?
Tuesday, the 16th?
Yeah, well,
do
again,
have-
do them in a row.
Do have
Planning board?
planning board that night.
You have a planning board that night, okay, that won't work.
Leave it on Monday.
Let's leave it on Monday.
Okay,
15 minutes late, I just won't sign up for dinner that night, that's all.
okay,
We'll bring you food.
okay, and then they're saying, it says here the 24th is,
Do you want to go on the 18th too, just say?
18th.
18th, yes, we're
Yeah.
gonna do the 15th, the end of the 17th, and the 18th.
I'll try to get the 17th
Right.
too.
At the end, yeah, that selectmen's meeting, we'll try to do it there. That will depend upon how long the agenda is, if the agenda's too long. And then we're looking at the next week, the 24th and the 25th. And the 25th will be if needed. Last year, we used them all. We ended up doing our revisits that last night.
Well, that sounds good,
So we're doing the 9th, 10th, 11th, 15th, at the end of our selectmen's meeting on the 17th and the 18th, and then the following week, the 24th and 25th. Going to start at 6 o'clock, and we'll do the sign-up for food at another meeting.
yeah.
Give you guys a chance to think about what you might want to cook.
But you might want to bring.
Okay.
Box lunch,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Pizza.
Blumkes.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
Since everyone's calendar is ready and handy, could I add one date to your calendar?
Sure.
We are working on setting up the FirstNet meeting for October 2nd at 1 o'clock. I would expect to have a pretty good crowd for that meeting. I'm looking for an alternative location to this room only because the acoustics aren't terribly conducive to that sort of a meeting, a back and forth exchange meeting.
I don't think the chief's been on that email trail. I don't believe that our chief has been on that email trail.
Right, it's basically been with the state, and, well, yes, I thought both chiefs were.
I don't recall, you know.
I don't recall seeing it either.
Yeah, I think we need to add the chief to the email
I
trail.
saw him either.
October 2nd, you
Yeah,
said?
10
October
to 1
2nd
o'clock.
at 1.
And I was thinking we could try the Boathouse, we could try the Congregational Church or All Saints Church, the places that we've done meetings before. We need to. I think we can use this, but we'd have to have full mics. And I don't know if we have enough mics. Are you looking at is going around the table or a presentation?
There will be a brief presentation by the state leaders on the topic, but I would like active engagement with the Information Technology Committee and with the selectmen, and as well as the chiefs, so that we can have a little bit of a back and forth.
Okay. The reason we can't, the library will be under construction, so you'll try to find us another space.
Yes, I will.
Okay? Everybody got that on their calendar? Alrighty. Any old business? Any other business, Brad?
Yeah, I got, one thing came up at a planning board meeting last week. We had an applicant come in for a pre-application discussion. It wasn't a formal submission or anything on a subdivision on a piece of property. This property now has frontage on 2 roads. Has 1 house on it. The house is off of Highland Terrace and fairly large. I can't remember how many acres. It's a pretty good chunk of land. I think it's around 7. For some reason in my head, I think it's 17 acres, but don't hold me to that. And the other back piece of it actually has frontage on what's called Maplewood Road, which is off of the Cricket Hill development up there. The presenter came into the planning board with a lot of history on it, of previous lots that were built on. It's basically built out all the way up to where this frontage will be. There's houses up in there, and there was varying information regarding the status of that road. There were comments in there that it was a class 5. There were comments that it was a class 6, and also that it was private at different dates and stuff like that from our town planner and stuff. So came into question as to what status that road is, and if it is a subdivision done, or we're going to allow a subdivision on a private road, or even if it's a class 6 road. So they're kind of looking for a little guidance and comments from the planning board, and I told her I'd bring it up to the selectmen for discussion. And my thoughts are to look internally here, mainly through Public Works, to have them do a little research and see if there's any documentation as to exactly what we maintain in there, how far up there we plow. So I guess we were, there were comments made that at one time plowed up further, then they were pulled back to stop at a certain point. I think it'd be nice to probably get that clarified if we have any written documentation as to what that is. So I just want to bring it to the board's attention. I don't feel that it's the town's responsibility at all to go into researching deeds and stuff like that to determine what class that road is. I think that's up to the applicant to really do that research and stuff there, but I thought we could look in-house, at least on a Public Works end, to see what maintenance had been done, because that kind of determines the class of a road by that too, as to if we maintain or don't maintain. So just want to bring it up for discussion and comments, or if people agree with my thought process. Or
I think you're right on. I think we should see what Public Works has been doing with it. That may give us some kind of idea if it went from a class 6 to a class 5 or whatever. Or whether it was always a class 5, and you know how sometimes we get rumors going.
yeah.
So, is anybody else on the board? Are we all comfortable with what Brad suggested to take a look at that? Yep. All set? Okay.
Thank you, Brad.
Any other business? Hearing none, I'll start down with Paul, and we'll go with committee reports.
Thank you. Yesterday, in this great hall, I attended voter education. First time I've done that, and there was all the towns around the area were here represented, learned about how to register people to vote, how they should vote, the whole process. It was actually a lot of fun, and the Secretary of State actually showed up and did what we all like to do, and gave Pat Waterman just a big shout out for her strident support of the voting effort. I've been involved in the infrastructure committee. We met last evening. Several of us did. Energy committee for the master plan has been meeting. We've been doing purpose statements. We have one on the cusp of being ready for the upcoming meeting next week. And I've had a couple of sit-downs with Peter Cook, thanking him for the wonderful hospitality at his place, and just talking about his ideas about things going forward. It's been fun. Thank you.
Abe.
I've been to 2 union negotiating meetings and to Conservation Commission, along with Paul and some of the rest of us were at the voter education, and to the Land Use Committee, Emergency Management.
That's enough.
Brad?
Yeah, see, we had as I said, had a planning board meeting last week that we talked about here. Had a Wolfeboro Community TV meeting last week. We do have Friends of Live Museum tomorrow night, which I'll be doing the first part of that meeting, then leaving to go up to the Tuftonboro meeting that we're all going to go up to for the planning board. We did have our first Libby Museum Building Committee meeting a week and a half ago. I can't remember which day it was now, but we had that meeting. And we also had our infrastructure meeting that a bunch of us were at last night for the master plan update for that chapter. That was it.
Yeah, I also attended that election seminar, and I think that's the largest group I've ever been in for that. I was really impressed with the numbers that came out. I met with the Friends of the Town Hall. They are keeping a close eye on this building. I went to the Emergency Management Night meeting for the fire department. The Special Events Committee last night, 2018, is up and running and working hard. We're going to be in more facilities this year. And I joined Brad and Paul at the infrastructure meeting last night. For this meeting, I was at the Chamber Social, and I attended the executive board. That's what I have. Town manager's report. Town manager's report.
So we were able to get a link put up on the webpage, and you can read the prior town manager's reports. This one talks about my visit to the food pantry, which was incredibly impressive. You have a very dedicated, steadfast group of volunteers who take care of people in Wolfeboro. And they were able to take $1 and stretch it till it nearly broke by purchasing food and staples at the food bank. And so for $85, they took and filled a trailer full of commodities, canned foods, pasta, peanut butter. It was incredibly impressive.
Good. Anything else?
Lots of other things, including toe surgery, if you read all the way to the bottom of my report. We are gearing up for capital improvement projects meetings coming right up, and so stay tuned.
Okay. All righty. Any questions from the press? Public input. Any more public input? I've got a few dates to announce. The Master Plan Forum will be this coming Tuesday, the 21st, at 6:30 p.m. up here at the Great Hall. And I also want to inform the public that I think just about all of us on the Board of Selectmen will be going to Tuftonboro tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. For the boundary line adjustment. Jim Rhines of White Mountain Survey will be doing the application presentation to the Planning Board for the Board of Selectmen. Can I have a motion to go into non-public?
So move.
Second.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay.